was me!
All right.
And then from there we'll go to Deco. So this is the Deco submission sheet. This is where we'll take that same sculpt submission, but we'll add the color to it, we'll add the graphics to it, all the different types of finishes, and we'll make notes on that. We'll let them know like the accessories are inspired by. You know, we'll also have the interchangeable goggles up there with their Deco.
Okay. Dare Deco, did you say?
Their
Deco. Okay.
I'm from New York, so I have a little accent. So, and also on the base, so you can see the really cool dynamic overspray and the silver on the, you know, sign that is warping because Flash is going by. Kid
So
Flash
fast,
is going by so fast that he is going to melt things as he breaks the speed barrier. And then from there on, we go and we order our materials. So these are different materials that we'll have to spec, and we'll decide, you know, which materials actually go to which parts that are going to work best for them. So there's things like ABS, which is commonly used on the action figure bodies. So like the upper torso, lower torso, those are commonly ABS.
Why is there a difference in the plastics used?
It's really, you know, just because of what you're doing with the figure itself. Like you'd want to use PVC because it's really flexible and durable, and things like arms that are going to be pulled on, articulated a lot. Things that are going to be painted heavily, that are more structural, use an ABS.
Okay.
Yeah. Things like polypro are used when we're doing like larger objects like bases and things like that. It's a little bit less in cost. It does take paint. There's a little bit extra process for that. It's stuff that you wouldn't glue, so we wouldn't use that necessarily on a torso that we have to glue together.
Okay.
Because it just wouldn't work. And I went over the PVC already for the arms and the legs. And then, you know, here are all our Deco operations, so these most common ones at least. So there's plate masks, that's where, you know, if they had a section of the arm that they had to paint, they'd stick a plate over it, and then they just spray over that, and it would create that, you know, masked out area. There's a book mask where you have something like a strap going around the complete arm, so you have to do both sides in one shot. So actually it's like a plate mask with a hinge, so it folds over the whole arm.
Okay.
The spray around that. There's oversprays, and these are all done by hand. There's not a machine automated process, and oversprays, you know, they're as good as the person applying them. So there's a guy that's going down the line and lightly just spraying over the figure. So they're all hand painted just like a statue would be hand painted, which I don't think a lot of people realize that detail is going into the figure.
Wow.
Wipes as well, hand process. They wipe the paint on, they wipe the paint off, and it's really the skill of that technician on the line that is able to apply that in such a way. And dry brush is all hand dry brush. So when you see little scratch marks, you know, little things that look like this battle damage, the eye line around the eye, that's all painted by hand. The dots on the eye are all done by hand. And then there's vac metallizing. You know, this is where they have to spray it first with a conductive coating, and then they'll actually attract the metal onto it. So that's where you'll get like the really high gloss metallic looking finish on a figure.
Okay,
so
kind of like,
like
Captain
chrome.
Adam or something like that?
That's a silver spray.
Oh,
so
okay.
this would be if it was more like a chrome coat. That's a vac metallized coat.
Okay.
So where it actually looks and feels like metal is because there is a thin layer of metal that's actually attracted onto the figure. If you looked at like the Legion, I don't know if anybody saw the Legion 12-pack that we had at Comic-Con.
I am a super Legion fan. I'm so excited about that.
That ring itself was actually, you know, electroplated with actual gold.
Oh yeah, because it's 24.
Yep,
is it
24 karat gold. So
yeah. Oh,
that's
okay.
the process that they would use to pull the metal onto that ring. So here's an example of one of the Deco operations we mentioned. This is a pad print. It's a tampo. This is where we transfer an actual Illustrator graphic, and a pad will come by and it'll stamp it onto the chest, and Captain Atom is the example we used for that. So it's a real simple thing, but it's not done with a plate mask. It's you know, they make a screen from an Illustrator file and they transfer that right onto the figure, so it's show accurate. Here's kind of what that process looks like in the plant.
This isn't making food?
No.
Maybe I'm just hungry.
It could be. It is close to lunchtime. But one thing you'll notice here is each one of these parts is so unique that there is no jig for it. So they have to make custom jigs for every single one of these parts.
Wow.
They have to hand insert it under the pad print machine that comes down and stamps it.
Wow.
Because each one of these parts are so unique. If they had to create tools and custom jigs for all of them, the cost would just be
astronomical. Yeah.
Exactly. And the same thing with like the plate masks. You know, there is a spray booth just like you would expect if you had your own home spray booth. They have a plate mask, you put it on there and they spray it by hand. So there's a lot of hands that touch these figures before they get into the package and on the store shelves. So here's a couple bit of the manufacturing process that we'll use for the molding. So this injection molding, which is the most common, we use that most often. That's basically every part you see here is really an injection molded process. There's rotocast. This is what you'll see commonly in like urban vinyl toys that are hollow on the inside. You'll notice they have that big ring on the bottom. That's what they plug it after they drained all the extra material out. There's blow molding. You'll see this in a lot of role play, swords, very thin walled. There's vacuum forming, and that's where how all our blisters of our package are made, where they actually create a form and then they suck the plastic down on top of it through a vacuum that actually sucks it into the mold, and that's how they get the blister form. And then there's die cut, and this is used also for a lot of packaging. So the whole box would be die cut. So it's not a tool, it's just a big die they make. They stamp it out of the sheet of cardstock, and then they fold it up to make the package. So.
Oh, wow. There's a lot that goes into these.
And then there's other things that might go into the cost. You know, people like to forget about these, but there's purchase parts. So every screw, spring, nut, if there's any electronics, the batteries, the washers, the pins, the assembly labor. Like I said, they're all hand assembled, they're all hand painted. So this labor associated with that, soft goods, if there's any kind of a fabric on there. Kind of like the anti-monitor's cape. There's going to be a pattern that has to be made. There's going to be sewing that's going to be made. If there's welding, what we mean by that is plastic welding. So there's sonic welding, which is usually how we glue, we pin, and we sonic weld these torsos together to ensure that they will not come apart to the user. So there's a lot of extra process that goes in there, and that's where they create cones that vibrate at such a high frequency that actually melts and welds the plastic to another part.
Wow.
So
okay.
And then there's molding labor. They actually hand remove each one of these parts from the tool as they open up. Again, there's no mechanical
this welding,
arm.
Is that hand welded? I mean, do they actually
It's set up by hand, but there's a machine that does it.
Okay.
So same way like the pad print is. They'll set everything up on the line by hand, and then the machine will come and tap it in. But the same thing with the molding labor is, when they open these molds, there's somebody pulling them out. There's no mechanical arm going in there and reaching it, because again, they'd have to set it up differently for each type of part and the way it's laid out. And then electronics labor, like I said, not mainly in this line, but it is associated with some other products. So what happens from after this process basically encompasses the design and engineering part of it, the second design review with the sculpting and deco. Sculpting is required for any new toy. Schedule assumes no more than one round of comments. We try to keep it down to 1 or 2 rounds at most. And then deco approval from our partners. So this is kind of what it looks like when it goes into the tool. And as you can see, that's what it looks like when the tool's opened up, and we're pulling the part out with the gates on it. And this is what I was talking about when they hand assemble these. They have a bucket of joints, and they have to hand assemble every single one of these figures. Now, joint by joint. So a lot goes into it. And then from there we'll get what we'll call a first shot. So this is the first, what I mean by first shot is when the tool's been used for the first time, it's first been shot with plastic or resin. So this is accurate materials, not accurate colors. So it's not the base color would necessarily be in, but it is accurate materials. So you will be now able to test the tolerances in the real materials, how it would really be produced. We'll be able to see things like, wow, this guy should use some foot pegs on this base. Let's add some foot pegs, but we don't know that. And we'll see how the parts come out of the tool. Is there shrinkage? Is it too loose in his hand now from the tooling model where it was a really tight fit because some of the materials temperatures shrink or expand? So this is where we'll adjust the hand, and we'll make sure that, or we'll adjust the weapon itself to fit accurately into the figure's hand. We'll assemble it all together. We'll play with it. We'll bash it around, we'll throw it, we'll pull on it, we'll make sure that it's safe, that it's going to held together, that things aren't warping and looking out of place, that there isn't flashing all over, and we'll comment on all that. There isn't shrinkage, because they could adjust the tool to account for that, and we'll just go over it with a fine-tooth comb to get the figure that we all love. So at that point, then it's also an art release for the packaging file. So there is a whole process for the package as well. They have to get all that art approved. They have to have the concept approved, how they pose it in the package, how they tie it down to the package. We've been having a lot of issues with that as well, and we're trying to work through those to make sure that it's still dynamic to the consumer if they want to keep it in their package, but it also comes out easy for the fan that wants to take it out and display it, that it's not going to pull out and warp as it comes out of package. So we'll work with the packaging team closely on this. They'll really create the art and the branding that kind of sells the whole storyline together with the package. And then from that point on, you know, we assume about 4 weeks from China to U.S. and another 4 weeks from our DC distribution centers to toy shelves. So about 8 weeks from when it's done, it appears on shelves.
Wow.
And that's basically what it looks like shipping out.
It's going to be 12 weeks. But go ahead.
It could be. So this is what it looks like shipping out. As you can see, it's just a massive warehouse of boxes ready to go and hit the shelves. So.
Well, very cool.
It's a toy design process.
Now we've got. We're going to look at some things about C. Now this is. Now what was this called again?
Okay, so this is a tooling model.
Okay, so this is a tooling model. This lets you know everything works.
Yep, this lets us know everything works. It shows us how the parts are being broken up and how the tool is going to be formed to create these parts.
Okay.
And we have to look over that and prove and make sure everything is accurate to the way we want it done, that we think the tolerance is going to work, that we think the movement of the articulation is going to work, how things fit together, do we see gaps, do we see anything that's standing out. We'll comment on that and they'll adjust it before they go to tooling.
Okay, and this is actually, this is the kind of the next step in this. Well, not the very next step, but you'll see this after this.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
We'll get a first shot. Once we approve the tooling model, they will cut steel. They'll make those tools. It's a rather large investment, which is why there's so much work that goes in before we cut the tool, because once you're at tooling, it's really hard to go back. And then we'll get our first shots, and from there there'll be, you know, as minimal adjustments as needed to make sure that the product comes out. We'll try to keep them to a minimum, but if it's really important that has to happen, we will push it to happen, because we want this product to come out on shelf and just be the best it could be, display as well as it could be, because that's really why we invest in all of this anyways, to make sure that the fans and the consumer are going to get a product that they want to buy into.
Well, that's awesome.